Oppenheimer has faced countless attacks by snowflakes who thought it was a movie for only men to enjoy, that it was an offensive and uncomfortable film to be released, and now the CW director herself, Ava DuVernay, is saying that racism and sexism are the only reasons why the Oppenheimer film is so popular, and it's why her new movie is failing. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media so you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and live streams I create, consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So I wanted to start off with this Bounding into Comics article, but it says, according to director Ava DuVernay, the lack of interest in her upcoming Isabel Wilkerson biopic Origin compared to the similarly structured Oppenheimer has nothing to do with the latter's historical importance and everything to do with the audience's own racist and sexist attitudes. Now, she is someone who is, an individual who says this narrative very often that, my projects fail because of racism and sexism, and not just because they're bad pieces of work. When it comes to what she's previously done for CW, she was the director behind Naomi. It was the, woman of color who had very similar powers to Superman, and she basically was like a superwoman, right? She's this individual who struggled with things like racism her whole life, but she got these magical powers and she's using them for good. And this show never took off. Its ratings took a catastrophic nosedive, and then the CW decided it did so poorly that they were just going to outright cancel it after one season. And funny enough, the series wasn't even finished before they announced that it would no longer be returning for a second season. And she did kind of say this narrative then that it only failed because of external reasons. It didn't just fail because of the contents of it. I'm so proud of it. This team was so proud of it. And it was such a powerful series, but it was axed. And now she's pulling the same exact thing with this latest film. It's a biopic about Isabel Wilkerson, who was born in 1961, and she is best known for being a journalist who's won several prizes over her life. It says the 1994 winner in the feature writing category, she received the award from Columbia University for her profile of a fourth grader from Chicago's South Side and for 2 stories reporting on the Midwestern flood of 1993. Now, of course, what has Ava DuVernay done? Instead of going into interviews and releasing, tweets and posts about how powerful this story is, nope. Instead, she's decided to compare these two films. Speaking on her film with Variety's Angelica Jackson, the woman once attached to helm DC's New Gods film explained it has biographical elements, so in some ways it's a biopic, in some ways it's a docudrama, in some ways it's just a straight-up adaptation of these really beautiful and tragic moments in history. The goal was to try to stitch together a tapestry, to create a quilt. That's how I think of it, and allow myself to color outside of the lines of what I've been told, just to throw all that out and tell the story from my gut, and it came from reading this book. Now, it goes into talking about how the film tries to align both stories, personal trauma and our cultural trauma, and understand that the only way to solve or heal any of it is to walk through it, and this film tries to walk people through both. But then, of course, she decides to get into the discussion of Oppenheimer. In turn, DuVernay unsurprisingly blamed the existence of this challenge on the inherent racism and sexism of general audiences. You're right, she affirmed. It's challenging to watch a process film about a man making a bomb, Oppenheimer. He's a man who was trying to do something and couldn't quite describe it to anybody else, but he knew it. Isabel is a woman who knows something and can't quite describe it, but she knows it and she's gonna find it. You'll sit through 3 hours of his process while you sit through 2 hours of her process. This is so ridiculous because this isn't to diminish anything that Wilkerson did, right? But people are just naturally drawn towards war. People are always going to be more interested in war. It's human nature. This isn't just the story of Oppenheimer, but also World War II. It's about the invention of something that changed the course of human technology from every corner of this planet. It's also a story about a war that raged across the planet that millions and millions of people were affected by and sadly dying in. So yeah, people are more interested in that rather than a movie about a journalist facing racism. The only one that is trying to draw a comparison between these two films is her. No one else is. No one else is trying to weigh what the other did against each other. She's just trying to create drama so that people are talking about her film. This isn't the conversation we're gonna have, though. We're not gonna give it to her because they both did things that can't be compared. It's a trap and it is not gonna work with me. You don't need to compare Oppenheimer to validate what Wilkerson did or validate learning about this woman and her story and what she wrote about. It's just a trick and does a disservice to the woman she's making this film about. Let her accomplishments stand on their own. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Don't pit people and their accomplishments against each other. They did different things for different reasons, and that's it. It can also be the case that what they accomplished are more important to different people, and it's just drama to compare them. I also think that Oppenheimer's a much more famous person. His name is just so much more well known. It's not because he's a man or because he's white. It's because of the mark he left on history. It's just that plain and simple. And to see someone like Ava DuVernay compare these things is just terrible. I wouldn't do this. She shouldn't do this, but of course she is because she knows that this film is, probably not gonna do all that well in theaters, and the first reviews for it are okay, but you have to keep in mind that we are talking here about critics, right? Show critics who will show for anything that they believe pushes the political narrative they agree with most, and they trash anything else. There were a lot of critics who absolutely hated Oppenheimer and agreed with her that said, ugh, why would I want to sit through this movie about this guy who did bad things? That's basically what they said. But they're not, fully praising this origin film, but they're saying that it gets your brain juices flowing, right? It gets you really thinking. It says a heartfelt look at a journalist challenging the concept of race. But even like The Guardian gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and they even say that it would have been better as a documentary. Now, of course, Ava DuVernay does not know how to do documentaries because she wanted to make this, a docudrama. As she said, she wanted to add that dramatic flair to it to make it more, I think, palpable for average audience moviegoers. But I don't think that it is fair to compare Oppenheimer and her new film Origin. She also said it's not talking about the merit of the films, it's talking about the very idea of following a woman through an intellectual process and intellectual exercise. Then you make that a black person, then you make that a black woman. Is it valid enough for you to go on that journey with her? If I personally wanted to watch a film like this or like Oppenheimer, I'm not looking at someone's gender, I'm not looking at someone's race, I'm looking at the way that it is marketed. What are you trying to make me question throughout this documentary? Am I, grasping at this because, wow, she was this award-winning journalist who really tried to delve deeply into the struggles of people of color? That is something that is interesting to a lot of people. Not, oh, well, I'm pitting this against Oppenheimer because she's a black woman and Oppenheimer was a white guy. That's not what is going to bring people in. That's just not how you should market or promote a film like this at all. But Ava DuVernay doesn't understand that. It's like she made this and doesn't actually care about its numbers. She just wants to get controversy surrounding it so that maybe more people will know about it. I mean, I don't think that that's a very good thing to do. I think it's doing a disservice to Isabel Wilkerson and the story you are trying to tell, but Ava DuVernay's the one who was hired for it, and it seems like she's struggling in the industry right now. Of course, Hollywood is kind of up in flames, right? But she did have Naomi. She got to push all of her narratives into it, and it failed. It was axed after one season, and like I mentioned, they canceled it before the first season was even done. It doesn't seem like she's really up to a lot right now, except for this. After Origin, who knows what she's going to do. But I personally do not like Ava DuVernay. I do not like the way that she, went into this interview and like tried to create this drama and this controversy around this. I think that it's completely disrespectful. I think it does a disservice to her work. And I of course, do not agree with the narrative that racism and sexism are the only reasons why Oppenheimer was a successful film in the first place. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.